Welcome everybody to the RONA January meeting of 2022. Happy New Year. And we are going to hear from David Cohen's office and letting us know what they did this past year and what they have planned for the upcoming year and maybe address some of our questions that we have. All right, so take it away, David, or one of your staff. I don't know who.
I got it, but and I have sort of a general presentation about which is kind of our year in review presentation. We'll just go through quickly and look at some of the highlights, but then we also have some other things that aren't in the presentation that are more specific to the region that RONA represents that we can talk about and answer questions after. I think, okay, I'll share.
Are you doing the slideshow or is someone else doing it? Okay, no, I gave you co-host.
Yeah. You see the slides now, right?
We do.
All right, let me put it in presentation mode here. I always forget how. They keep changing the interface on this. There we go.
Down in the...
Let's go slow about this. There it goes. Okay. All right, so this is a general overview of the year. As you know pretty much what we do in City Hall, but a lot of our work is casework, things that are called in from the community, provide services obviously for the community as well, do policy work and community outreach by holding events and hope some in person, a lot of virtual in the last year, but we're hoping we can do more in person in the next year. This is our staff. I think many of them are on the call today. Stacy's here, the chief of staff. Lam Nguyen's our communications director. Alexander is on vacation this week, but he's one of our community and policy folks, along with Marley and Hugo, who I think are both on this meeting. I think you know both of them, or at least you know Hugo for sure. Sarah Fu is new to our office. She was an intern in the fall, but she's now on full time as a new council aide for our office. And so this is our current staff. We're doing, obviously, one of the things that everybody wants from district offices are these dumpster days to help clean up your neighborhoods. We did 7 of them in 2021, filled up 40 dumpsters, which is approximately 82,000 pounds of garbage that was collected at those 7 dumpster days. I spent a lot of time in the dumpsters moving garbage, but I tore a tendon doing it. And so I had surgery in November and my dumpster diving days are over, but we will continue to hold dumpster days around the district in the coming year. This is an overview of the type of casework that we have coming in to our office and what issues they cover. Public safety and homelessness have been the top 2 areas, as you might imagine. Obviously, close behind that, sidewalk, street improvements, and planning and code enforcement issues. And then more general park, blight, neighborhood concerns, vehicle abatements. So those are the breakdown of the types of calls that we've been getting. I think the total number, about 600 different requests for service have come in during the year 2021. I will point out when we say that I think we did the math, about 20% or so come in from Alviso, about 70% are coming in from the Berryessa zip codes. We get very, very few requests for service from the North San Jose RONA area. So I'm not necessarily asking you to request service, but we definitely don't get as much coming in from the North San Jose part of our district. We also had some activities in our district, various things, including this picture from a tree planting we did in Berryessa. We did vaccination clinics, particularly in the Alviso, North San Jose area. We did some public safety events with the police department, safe neighbor training, walking the area with our police chief, did a series of town hall meetings, sponsored a national night out, did some activities for students in the district, gave away pumpkins in pajamas. We also were at Christmas in the park. allowing some of our music groups to perform. We also help co-sponsor some events that are put on by other groups. Several of them, actually, all of these were in Alviso, our community ice cream social with the police department, the annual Santos car show at Labor Day weekend, a Day on the Bay, which is run by the Supervisor Lee's office, but we were a co-sponsor, and also the Santa Visis Alviso event in December. And then a couple of community or community policy activities. Just today, we reached a milestone on the termination of the Charcot extension. As you may know, the city had approved a year and a half ago the extension of Charcot over 880 to connect into Oakland Road, which was going to cause a disruption to the Orchard School. So I've been working to redirect the funding to other transportation projects and have canceled the Charcot project. Today, the Rules Committee unanimously voted to move forward with the termination of the project, and it'll come to council in another few weeks to move on from that and focus on other more important transportation needs. Agnews Park is important to you. We've been working to make some progress, although obviously it's going to be a long process from here forward, but we are committed to move forward with the master plan in 2022, finding the funding for that. Also working collaboratively with Santa Clara Unified School District to help fund that and take the next steps. We, as you know, were engaged in the discussion about how to install and whether to install some wells there. We expect the impact to be minimal, but I took the lead to focus on getting the one well installed that will be important to providing water supply, and waiting to site the other two wells as part of the master planning process, which will be moving forward hopefully soon. You probably also heard about our safe RV parking site in North San Jose. Apple was beginning to move on to the next phase of development on their property on Component Drive off First Street. And there were about 50 to 70 people living on that site. So with Apple's support and the help of Home First, we got 50 of those people moved into temporary housing. My feeling about homelessness is that we don't chase people off the site just so that they'll end up settling somewhere else, but we try to, if we have to move people, we move them methodically by finding locations for them. There were about 5 to 10 people living in RVs and vehicles who weren't prepared to move into hotels. They didn't want to give up their cars. They wanted to make sure that they stayed with their vehicles. They preferred living in an RV, for example. So we had to quickly open up a site where we could relocate those 5 to 10 people. We did that up on Vista, Montana, and we kept that site open for about 3 months while we worked with each of those folks to find them a place to go. And every single one of them received an opportunity for supportive housing. Those who had broken cars all got their cars fixed, and one actually got a job as we were closing the site. So we're excited that we were able to provide that safe, stable place to help them transition from where they were into something more hopefully stable for them going forward. And of course, a big thing for us this last year was updating the zoning on the Berryessa Urban Village Plan, which was originally approved back in 2007. There were some upgrades to the density that were being proposed. And at the same time, I was committed to making sure that we, for the first time, addressed the displacement of the vendors at the flea market. So we got a commitment for 5 acres to be set aside at the new development to continue to allow several hundred vendors to remain there. In addition to that, we negotiated the creation of a flea market advisory group and a $5 million grant from the property owner to help support their work going forward so they can assist the vendors in their transition and help design the new market. And then this is just an example of something that sometimes happens in neighborhoods across the city. We had in one neighborhood over by Brooktree 5 homes that were being used for an unlicensed care facility for people who had mental health needs and other kinds of needs. Because they were unlicensed, they weren't really doing the job they were supposed to be doing. They were receiving payments to house people, but those folks were causing a disruption for that neighborhood. They were receiving, I don't know if this says it here, about 100 calls for service from our police and fire department per month because of disruptions in the neighborhood and other issues in the homes. And it was a major strain on city resources. So most of the time these sites get ignored, and city council offices don't really have a procedure for how to deal with them. But our superstar Marley worked for months in cooperation with County Supervisor Otto Lee, Assembly Member Alex Lee, County Behavioral Health Department, and others. We were able to relocate those 40 residents and get a legal agreement with the homeowners for those properties that they would no longer allow that kind of use on site. And it's been a really great thing that we, by the end of the year, were able to clean up that situation. We're trying to work on figuring out how to put in place a program that will be more sustainable for the city to address these kinds of properties across the city as they come to our attention. We also have a few highlights here on our budget items. One of the big issues in our community is sideshows and vehicles that are using our roads for inappropriate activities. So we've secured $150,000 for spending at 3 locations in the district, which were very high areas for these kinds of activities. And those projects will be installed this coming year. And we'll see how those work. But in addition to that, not part of our funding, but the city has focused on it a lot. And we are seeing a huge drop in those kinds of activities due to really good work by our police department and legal department to try to shut down the promotion of those activities. And so actually the number of complaints for this kind of behavior has gone down in the last few months. We also got $78,000 in our budget to revitalize, rebuild the community garden in Alviso. The work is happening this year, and we hope, I think by the summer, the garden should be reopened and available for public use. And then the last thing that we're excited about is that this coming March is the 150th anniversary of Alum Rock Park. It's the oldest municipal park in the state of California, and we'll be leading the celebrations and invite everybody to come join us in March and April as we celebrate that milestone. A few policy things. We had a lot of policy work in our office. The city became the first big city in the United States to adopt a policy to become carbon neutral by 2030, which is 20 years sooner than most cities in the country are doing it. We know the urgency of this issue, and so we're pushing the envelope. This year, we have to come forward with the actual, it's one thing to say we're going to do it, it's another to actually get it done. So in the next few months, we'll begin the conversations with the city council on exactly which, what will be the highest priority things in the next 10 years and how we get to that point where everything is taken care of. Actually, it's about 8 years away at this point. I authored the legislation that will make sure that we don't just focus on transportation, but also on buildings, because there's a lot of carbon emission from inefficient buildings. We want to help people fund those improvements. We've did some work on campaign finance reform to make our campaigns more transparent and study a model for possible public campaign financing. We were also been very concerned in the last couple of years about tenant displacement and rental properties. So our office, and Alexander took the lead on this one. Our office wrote a proposal in the spring for the city to begin to study offering a right to legal counsel for tenants who are facing displacement. And we're in the process of studying that now and hope that we'll have some more information later this year. And then we've done a lot of different policy work on homelessness. As I said, my approach is to make sure that we have places to move people. So we're working right now to find some more permanent sites and provide services at the sites we have so that things will stay at least cleaner and more orderly. we were on the leadership group of council members trying to reduce tobacco use among our youth. We passed a legislation this year to ban sale of flavored tobacco, and so that, because that's really what hooks our young people on smoking, is the flavored tobacco products. And I also worked early in the year on trying to improve the efficiency of our council meetings by providing some input on how we do a better job of taking turns giving input at council meetings as council members. So that's it. That's the sort of overview. I have some more, obviously, information on some local things in your area, but we're looking forward to continuing to serve the district in 2022. I'm not sure what the best approach is, except maybe to take, I know that there's questions that were submitted in advance. If it would be, if you'd like to ask questions from those questions or your own questions, I can answer them. Maybe that's the best way to go, so it's not just me talking and it's more interactive.
Right. Yeah, that's fine. We can do that. We can ask some of the questions.
I mean, I can go open them up and look at them. We know the answers. We just.
Yeah, so I think probably the biggest, there's a couple of things that are really big that we have a lot of people asking about. One of them is the homeless situation with the campers on Sealy. As I emailed you, we've had a couple of people, I think at least 3 people who've told us personally of encounters with the one person has quite a few dogs. I think there's 4 or 5 there. And one of them, I guess, gets loose, and it's a pit bull, so it's scary looking. And there seems to be quite a bit of trash. I know since we emailed you, there was one that was being torn apart. It looks like it's been kind of patched up, so it's not as bad. But there's quite a lot of trash there. And there's also an abandoned car, which I need to talk to the police department about. It's been smashed up and torn apart, sitting over on Sealy as well. But if you could talk about the homeless situation on Sealy, and I know you have an overview of what you're trying to do, but maybe let people know what's been going on.
Yeah, so you raised a few issues. Obviously, we have dog issue and the abandoned vehicle. I can mention first. Hugo has done this for several other locations. When there's a dog as part of this, and that dog is a threat to people in the community, we have our animal control people deal with it, and they have done an effective job in a couple other neighborhoods when we've had this issue. So Hugo, I know he saw your message today, and we'll make sure that our animal control people check up on it and see what's happening there, because regardless of whether people are living there, they shouldn't be allowed to have a dog that's menacing to the community. So we will definitely follow up on that. As far as an abandoned vehicle, rather than go to the police department, there's an online site, San Jose 311. Okay. Where you can report abandoned vehicles, and when they're definitely abandoned and not just parked for a long time, the city will take care of that, and we'll work to deal with it. And it sounds like from your description there's a case where they would come in and deal with it. So make sure I mean, you can either tell us, but it's easiest if you go straight to the reporting site and turn in the report.
David,
I think the link,
Councilmember, can I add
link somebody can put the link in the chat.
Marley, why don't you put the link in the chat? But I wanted to add something to that as well. So the 311 app is basically the city's, ticketing system. You got a problem, you put it in, and all that other stuff. You'll get a ticket number when you put it in. Keep track of your ticket number, because if you're not getting a response, that's what you should send to our office. Send an email to District 4 at sanjoseca.gov. Tell us what the situation is. Tell us what the ticket number is from 311, and that way we can help get it unstuck.
David, have you been out to Sealy to look at? Yeah, we went out.
So we have two sites in North San Jose right now where we have kind of a large collection of RVs parking. Besides Sealy, we have one, checking the actual street name. What was the other street name, Hugo, over by the businesses over on Tasman?
It's called like Champion or something.
Champion like Court or something. There's a there's a collection of RVs parking there as well. Obviously, there's if we include Alviso, there's also RVs on Spreckles, but we definitely would like to find a place to relocate those RVs. But similar to how we handle the component site,
Right.
if we just drive in there and scatter the RVs, they'll just find another street to park on somewhere nearby, which could make it worse because instead of being all in one street, they could end up on 6 streets, or they could just concentrate down the street and not have solved the problem. So we're working closely with the county right now. I've been in touch with them regularly about identifying some county-owned property in North San Jose that we can turn into a permanent facility like the one we did on Vista Montana.
Yeah.
Vista Montana was only intended to be temporary because it was not an ideal location and because the site is slated for development. But when we get a permanent location, we are going to provide the same kind of services we provided there with security, fencing, bathrooms, garbage, and lighting, so that everybody that is in an RV will actually have a place that's more appropriate for them to park it. So I'm pushing pretty hard that hoping the next month or two we'll have a site, because what I don't want to do is just go in and move people, but we know the priority locations where the RVs are, where we would end up trying to move them. And the original site was only for 5 to 10 vehicles. The idea here is we'd have a site that was big enough to handle a larger number.
Right. Okay, good.
And what about the trash? Is that being managed, or is it just like when somebody reports that there's piles of trash?
There's large trash.
I mean, I know that area people were dumping stuff.
Yeah.
In addition to
let me
them
answer
being
that
there.
one.
Yeah, that Hugo answered.
Yeah. So you guys alerted me, and I don't know, Gene, if it was you or if it was another resident, about the trash there. I think it was in late summer, early fall.
This is pretty bad now.
Yeah. So, I sent Beautify SJ there. So I'm gonna make sure that they have regular. I don't know if they, from that instance, if they activated it as a regular collection site.
Okay.
I want to make sure that they go there regularly to pick up the trash.
Okay.
And based on, your email earlier today, I did let our homeless concerns folks know, go out there and reach out to these folks. And they, they have a conversation with them, try to get them some services if they need them.
Right.
And then that's when they kind of see, well, what kind of things do they need to help them, kind of keep the area clean and sanitation services, whatever. But I'll make sure that Beautify SJ knows to regularly go to that site until the RVs can, relocate somewhere better. Okay,
great. So
I was going to say there's 3 things that happen that cause garbage, right? And one is garbage that there's 3 approaches to this. One is Beautify SJ. If there's a large amount of garbage, they will come out and clean it up. And they're pretty quick about doing that when we report it to them. And you can do it similarly through that 311 app. If you see it, report it, they'll come out. And usually they're out within a day. The second thing is that if we have a place where there are homeless living, there is something we haven't tried at this site, but where we can give them bags and actually give them gift cards for collecting the garbage and keeping it clean. So we haven't done that here, but that's an option as well. And then the third thing I'll just point out is that what we find at a lot of these sites is that unfortunately unscrupulous either contractors or others with garbage from home come and say, well, since there's homeless here, this is a place where we can dump things. And unfortunately, it makes people think it's the homeless people who are dumping when it's often others who are dumping.
Right.
And that's a tougher problem to deal with. But those are the kind of situations where we contact Beautify SJ and they clean up after.
Yeah, I think with the Sealy site, somebody had dumped trash there before the campers were there. I mean, they've only been there, I think, maybe a year and a half, really. I'm not really certain. It's not been super long, but there was trash there before they came, and now it's just gotten bigger, especially the person with the dog. I swear he's put mattresses out like a front porch or something. I find it inventive, to see how they're building a house out of what's there, but there is trash there.
And in certain cases, if somebody gets too disruptive, like the person with the dogs, and we can't control that, then that's where we would get the police involved to say, we'll move along an individual that's not fitting in and being as careful about what they're doing. Hopefully it won't get to that point.
Okay, so we we had a question about, I know this wasn't one that we emailed, it is traffic and it is school. There are no signs that say that there's a school in the neighborhood for school zone. Today we were on Sealy and there was a woman actually pushing her,
Not silly. you
I mean,
cat-
sorry, it's Cisco Way.
Yes. it's-
We were on Cisco Way. We're off Sealy. We're back on Cisco Way. And that's where the entrance is, where the parents drive to pick up the, I believe, elementary school children.
Yeah, Lily.
And there was a woman trying to cross the Cisco Way with her carriage. And, you know, cars are going 35 miles an hour and there's actually no crosswalk there. It's, you know, a solid yellow line. So she probably shouldn't have been crossing there. But, you know, people make the path they want, not necessarily follow the one that
Yeah.
the city put down. So we were wondering if I mean, how does that
When-
process work?
Yeah.
Will there be a point where it says, you know, slow children
Crossing.
zone 25 miles an hour? Because all the roads are 35 or faster right now.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And we'll add that to our note to mention to our transportation department meeting. We're meeting with the DOT on Friday.
Okay.
And that's you know, the school's new and I guess there hasn't been placement of those 25-mile-an-hour school zone signs yet. So
Okay.
we definitely should make sure that those happen. So we'll make sure we ask DOT about the plan for that, hopefully this summer as things are finished with the work around the site, and then do an evaluation of things like what you talked about of where people need to cross and where we might have to add crosswalks. And I see we have somebody on from Santa Clara Unified. We've talked to them about making sure that they put in their requests early to get crossing guards for next year because there are no crossing guards yet in place. And we'd like the city to help do that, especially on the Tasman Zanker side where kids are coming over from West Winds or Bay Point. We want to make sure that they have crossing guards at that intersection. So we're hoping that we'll get that request in and then we'll see whether we can get staffing for it. But we're going to put in a budget request to pay for additional crossing guards for that school.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we'll have to talk to, in addition to doing our own analysis, talk to the school about where they think the key crossing points are and where crosswalks should go.
And do you know like how much longer it's going to be for them to finish the corner of Zinker and River Oaks?
I'm not aware of the actual timeline. I mean, the high school is supposed to open this fall, and my assumption is that most of the external work will be done by that point, but I don't know the exact timeline of the road work.
Okay.
Maybe is that Michelle?
Yes, we are anticipating all of the work on Zinker and all that to be done before school opens in August. So we've had some setbacks with the city. They seem to keep changing their plans and what they want us to do, but I think we have all that figured out now, and so we are finishing it as quickly as we can.
Great.
And we'll keep our fingers crossed for Dick Santos and the Valley Water District that it'll keep raining. But the more it rains, the more delays you get on those kind of projects, unfortunately.
Yes, that is true.
So you spoke that you were working on the master plan with the parks, with avenues. So a couple of people have pointed out that the park is not dedicated parkland, and that there have been situations in the past where the city makes an emergency sale, or they take from what is supposed to be a park and is not dedicated, so they don't have to commit to that. What would be the process to be making sure that that park is dedicated parkland and stays as park and doesn't end up being parceled off for other things?
Well, we'll look into that. I'm not sure my understanding is that it is on the park's site. If you look at the city's park property list, it's there as parkland and
Okay.
for a future park. But whether there's some official designation that needs to occur, we'll have to find out. I will, while we're on the subject of parks, though, one other thing that I worked on this year was making sure that we have a strip of land along Guadalupe River behind, like where Riverview is. There's a park back there. The plan is that VTA is going to develop the property next to it, and then SK Hynix is going to develop their property south of that. And I made sure that when we gave the zoning for SK Hynix, that we asked them to keep the strip of land in the back undeveloped so we can have a long connected parkland all the way from Montague up through Riverview. So
Oh, nice.
that's the long-term plan there, as well as to have a longer park there.
Okay.
Okay.
And then I know you were sent a question about composting. What is the rule for, because we're mostly apartments and condos and, you know, high density. And I know that we already, you know, do our yard waste recycling. We've been doing that. What is the rule for our communities for food composting?
So it's a little confusing because
Yeah.
San Jose is so advanced.
Yeah.
San Jose several years ago implemented a process by which garbage is separated at the treatment facility. And obviously, you know, it would be great if everyone could get a tour and see how it works, but we have gotten that tour up at the newbie landfill. When the garbage goes in there, it goes through these long, big automated sorters that actually can separate the organic and compostable materials out of the garbage. Bags are ripped open as well, so that if you have a garbage bag, they're ripped open and all the garbage is separated out from in your bags. And that means that we don't have to have a separate receptacle for food waste and compostables. Yard waste goes in separately, directly into compost, but they want, the city and the landfill want the kitchen waste to come in the garbage stream, because that's different type of composting than yard waste composting. So throw out your food waste in your regular garbage, and the garbage collected in your community by a company, I think Republic might do yours. I keep forgetting which company does which buildings, but the garbage that's collected from your complexes goes to the landfill, and then all the organics are separated out.
Okay.
So San Jose was already meeting the needs of the new law, whereas other cities are now having to come up with procedures to do it.
Okay, and then I'm sorry, I received a message in the chat I missed. Somebody had a question about the 311 vehicle thing, so I'm gonna let her ask that now before we get too far away from it.
Okay.
Yeah, I had that question. This is Jocelyn Chan. I used 311 application and report the abandoned vehicle and the trash. It doesn't seem to be working because I've reported the same vehicle 3 times in our area that was parked, and all they did was flew it away. And I had to be very insistent, to the point that when our streets here at Rivers were getting fixed, that every single car. So why is it that the 311 or are so resistant into just doing things in this neighborhood? Even cleaning, even the cleanup, I reported trash in our parks that are already filled up, but it took them a week to just clean that up.
Well, as we said, now that we've spoken to you, if you have a case that you submit and you don't get the response you think you should get, let us know. Either Marley or Hugo will follow up on it. We've done that for other people before to find out what the status is. Certainly garbage pickup should be done. Now, vehicles are a tougher one. I think there were something like 60,000 vehicle reports per year coming into the city. So the city isn't going to tow all 60,000 cars. So they do an evaluation of each case to determine whether it rises to a level that requires abatement, or if it's really, if it's a working vehicle that's legally parked but is overstaying the rules, the city no longer has the resources to tow them all. So we would help look into that. If it's really a case where the vehicle is clearly, dilapidated, abandoned, then the city should take care of it, and they tell us they will. So our office would follow up if you have cases like that. And Hugo just put his contact information in the chat. You can email him directly.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. And then the master plan for the park, when would we be able to see that? Like what you guys have been doing?
Well, we haven't done anything yet, and you'll be part of it. I mean, we're committed to making sure that the community input and voice is part of that process. We're just committed at this point to starting the process and then involving you in helping design that park, laying things out, deciding what amenities you want, figuring out what the best configuration would be. What we're working on now is getting the funding in place to pay for that master plan.
Okay. And then I'm trying to remember. I think we had asked you about getting pedestrian lights along River Oaks. If not the entire area, then perhaps where the entrances are to where the condos and the apartment entrances, you know, there's 1, 2 on River Oaks, 1, 2, 3 on River Oaks between Research and like Sealy. And fortunately, we now have that 3-way stop, which helps a lot.
Yeah.
And then there's also, as you go from Research to Village Center Drive, the trees there are very dark. And so people crossing on Village Center Drive, you don't see them, even though the cross area between Village Center Drive across Research into, I think it used to be called Henry Ford. Is it Innovation now or something?
Innovation,
Yeah, that's well lit, but the trees going towards Village Center, you know, they block the light. So if not the entire area, can we get them in areas where there's people crossing where cars are?
We have a lot of people walking at night, you know, a lot of Indian communities, they all like to get out and walk. And so I know when Marcia and I was walking years ago, it was pretty dark, and we just don't want anybody to get mugged or you know,
Hit by a car.
or step in a crack and fall and hurt themselves. It needs to be lit a little bit better.
So we got that message from you, and we, you know, our opportunity is once a year to ask for budget to do things like that. So in this spring, when we put in our budget requests, our plan is to at least have, what they do first is we send in our proposals for requests, and then the departments do some work to tell us how much it would cost and what's feasible and what's not feasible. So part of this, the next few months, we will be having that study done for this particular request to see how many lights could be put in, where they could be put, and what we would have to request in next year's budget. And then we will submit a request to fund that in the next budget cycle. Now, you know, the truth of it is that once you fund it, it takes a year to 18 months to get them in, but getting it funded is the first step.
Right.
I'll mention, since you brought up River Oaks, we're excited. We got this 3-way stop sign in. That's not the end of the work.
Oh, cool.
The plan is for an activated crosswalk there with flashing beacons and, you know, the bulb out sidewalks that make it an easier cross.
Yeah.
That's coming. I don't know exactly. Somebody knows, this year sometime, I think, right?
Cool.
So that was just the first part of that. And then we also have gotten the city to take action to replace the trees that are out along that one stretch of the median. So hopefully this year as well, they'll come in and try to work on that too.
Okay, I'm gonna see if anybody else wants to ask any questions. I have a new message at the bottom. Was that? Oh, somebody was asking about a large enclosed dog park. Again, they wanted to know about the, well, I guess, you guys can read the messages, or is this a direct message? Oh, this is a direct message. So they also want to know about the homeless encampment on Coyote Creek, the Milpitas side, and that, I guess, is for the Water Valley District. So maybe that's, is that Richard Santos who would answer that question, or is this you guys? I don't know.
It's possible. If it's on the Milpitas side, it wouldn't be our jurisdiction, right? So
Okay,
I don't know.
right.
I don't think I know which encampment you're talking about there.
That's my question, so I'm going to clarify. So last year we had that big fire, and it was right on the homeless encampment on the Coyote Creek, which is the Milpitas side. Now they've been, I think they went away when the fire came in, and then now they're back again. So I was wondering what the Valley Water District would be doing once it starts growing again, because they seem to be seems to be growing again, because I've seen lights at bonfires there about 2 weeks ago, and garbage also.
I don't know if Dick, you want to try that, or what the policy is. I mean, it's been a challenge in all these jurisdictions around the creeks, because as you just discovered, people leave and then they come back, right? So it's really hard to keep it. That's why my approach has been to find places for people as opposed to chasing them away. But that takes a lot of time.
Yeah, I know, David.
I can try to help if you want me to. Dick Santos, your Valley Water District Director. When Mayor Tran or the City Council or the City of Milpitas calls and we post and work together, there's not have been a big issue over there by 237 Coyote. It has not been a big issue. There's been other issues in Berryessa Creek and so on with the City of Milpitas, and we have taken graffiti and work with them all the time. So when they call and they have a big issue, we work together and we post it and clean it out. The last homeless meeting we just had was a month ago, and we're assigning our money and different ways of doing things. As you know, working with the homeless is a very challenging process. I'm even going to try different things about trying to get them more involved by bringing food with David Hernandez there and trying to get folks to volunteer and feed them after we do the job and get more volunteers that way so they can help clean themselves up. But as you know, we have to have police protection. Our employees have had dog bites, gunshots, drug needles, you name it. So it's a very difficult challenge, but we're up for it. Our budgets are increasing because the numbers are increasing. It's just not in San Jose, it's all over. And by the way, the majority of the homeless live on other people's easements, not Valley Water. We only have 1/3 ownership of the rivers and creeks, and City of San Jose, the Eastside School District, and the county own the rest, and private. And you won't believe this, but we've given notices to the owners, and they refuse to allow us to go in to clean the creek. So we're going to be holding people responsible by a letter saying it's your easement, and if there's a flood, you're the one who's going to be sued legally and whatever have you. But meantime, we're here working with David and everyone else, City of Milpitas and all 13 cities. When they want help, we're there to help. And I'm the chair of that. It's called Unhoused. We call it now the Environmental Creek Cleanup. I'm the chair of it, and we do a great job, and we're continuing.
Yeah, so one of the things that has happened in the past is that people get scared off. I'm not talking about Dick specifically, but past council offices or others around the area often get scared off by jurisdictional questions. And so, my approach and our office's approach has been, we'll take the lead and make sure that whatever jurisdictions need to be involved are involved. And it's not just water district. We have, as you see, highway, Caltrans, as well as a big jurisdictional component. And our representatives from Assemblymember Lee's office just posted contact information there if you need help with that. But if we know about them and they're in San Jose's boundaries, but they're on the highways, we now have direct contacts with Caltrans as well to try to work with them on those sites.
I can just tell you this, you ask for help from the water district, in my district, you're going to get it. There is no obstructions.
Yeah, no, I
do something.
Yeah, we know that.
That's for sure.
And I do want to say, take the time, because it was David's office along with Stacy Brown, and of course Angel Reese, the deputy city manager, with a huge unhoused problem there in Alviso across from 237, and they helped clean that up. So those are good things. But there's always going to be challenges right now with unhoused, and we all been blessed because everybody says we want to help out, but not in our neighborhood. Well, yes, we do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a challenge.
So just to clarify, is Coyote Creek, is that under the Valley Water? I always thought that was like county or something, because it's the creek that runs the whole.
There is different ownerships along the creek.
Okay.
But the majority, this 1/3 is owned by us. But
Okay.
but that's not the issue. If we get permission from the county, we work together and we take the lead. The city of San Jose, on many occasions, we go in, we have a partnership. We're actually finalizing our new MOU along with the county and the city of San Jose. So I see good things coming. It's going to be difficult. We don't want folks in the creek, but you can't move them out unless you have some place to stay. So it's a difficult process.
Right.
The county has the Measure A for the housing. It's easy to talk about, hard to do. But I can just tell you this, you call in and you'll get help.
Can you put the phone number in the chat?
My phone number, it's available 724. It's 408-234-7707. Call me anytime.
Yeah, and I will say the San Jose Police Department now has a unit, which is Creeks Patrol Unit for specifically focused on homelessness on the creeks. They have an MOU in place with the Water District to do that patrol. And they're focused a lot on Coyote Creek, all the way from, well, in our district, all the way down from where the flea market is all the way up to the north end. And they'll walk through, they'll look where people are living. What they're looking for are people who have warrants or other issues, and they will deal with them. They will also look for illegal possessions and things so that they can try to keep the area safer. So they will patrol the area and try to do the job. And if there's an area that we're not aware of, because maybe it's a new encampment or something, if you let us know, we'll let them know. Of course, as we were talking about, the other side of the creek from you is Milpitas, so that's not the San Jose's jurisdiction side, but
Right.
And so as far as your San Jose's area, we have a unit to do that.
And what about, I just want to, the other question that Jocelyn had asked was about a dog park. This is true. There have been dog.
Marcel, before you go to the dog park, can I ask a related question?
Sure,
Yes,
sure.
To Hugo. So related to the fires, Hugo, so I've been emailing with you. I'm Eamon Curley from Millbrook. So I had been, even long before the fires last summer in Coyote Creek, we had been requesting to the city of San Jose to clear the brush in the area along the creek, which they're responsible for, between their wells. And they have consistently refused. So thanks, Hugo, for, helping with that. And so you got some commitment that Dan Greeley said that they would do something. And so that last email from him was on the beginning of November. And since then, they have done nothing.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
can you
I'll check
please
with
follow
them.
up with them again?
I'm sorry?
Can you please follow up with them again?
Will do. Yeah. Yep. So yeah, I remember your case. It was along the fence along the creek trail, right? And they
Right.
said that the brush was natural growth, which I agree. So there's some brush there and it's just natural, habitat. But underneath that, there's a lot of accumulation of pine needles and stuff like that that I did think was a little bit too much. And
Well, I mean, the
I
thing is-
requested that they clean that up. And so I
Right.
guess they haven't, right? So yeah, I'll
Right,
follow
yeah.
up with them.
Yeah, they haven't done anything. And so they've consistently refused to do it. And I mean, the thing is, if a fire starts again and it comes over and it gets into that brush, it's going to get into our houses and then the city is going to be responsible.
Yep. No, I completely understand. I agree with you. It was like a foot of accumulation of, dead leaves and pine needles and stuff. I agree with you.
Yeah,
So
Hugo
I'll
went and took a
definitely
look
follow
at the
up with
site, so he knows about it. So we'll make sure we follow up.
So Hugo, let's do a little good cop, bad cop on Dan.
Sounds good.
Hugo's
Stacy's our bad cop.
Hugo's the good cop. Don't worry.
Okay.
Hey,
Thank you.
I just wanted to say one more thing about the unhoused too, to kind of to Dick's point about what Dave Hernandez does with feeding homeless folks. We had this pajama drive back in December, and we got extra money donated to us for the pajamas. I forgot how many pajamas we gave out. 3,000 pairs or something. No, I'm kidding. It was like 150 pairs of pajamas, but there's some extra money left over. So we went ahead and used that money, and we've got hats, gloves, and socks coming in because the unhoused are very cold and uncomfortable right now. And so we'll be distributing those as soon as the hats get in on Friday. So every little bit helps.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I appreciate all the work that folks like Hugo and Stacy and others in our office have done and trying to get resources to help in those areas. Plus David Hernandez is a resident in District 4 who does a lot of great work. So we're appreciative. Dog park. So interestingly, I don't know, I can't say it's the only district, but at this current date, District 4 has no dog parks anywhere in District 4.
I actually think the corner of Zinker and River Oaks, there's a teeny tiny triangle that's the park by Air Apartments. It's like they didn't know what to do with the land, so they made it a
yes.
park.
That's right. There is
Nobody goes
there. I remember there is a little fence.
Nobody goes there.
There is one.
It's not really a park.
In District 4.
It's not a park. No dog can
It's not
run.
really a
It's like a place for your dog to go to the bathroom. That's it. It's not a park. Yeah.
So we We are getting the first dog park built this year over by the Berryessa Community Center. It'll be the first one in District 4, but
Wow.
we believe we might have a dog park over by the North Flea Market area as well as part of that new park design.
Okay.
We're not quite sure if that's going to happen. That'll be the second. And then certainly it makes sense to have one. I mean, of course, it probably makes sense to have one in both Alviso and somewhere over by River Oaks, but figuring out where that location is, it's certainly something that I'm willing to look into funding in the future. Takes a couple of years to design, build, and get the funding for something like that. But if we can find a location that's appropriate, we would certainly look into that. I believe, well, let me just say this, it would make sense that the Agnew's master plan would have a dog park because it's a huge land. I mean, that 20 acres would be one of the largest parks in the
Right.
city.
Yeah.
So there would be plenty of space to have a dog park as part of it. But again, the unfortunate thing is that's several years away before any of those things get built. But maybe if that's a priority, it could be on the early end of the development once the master plan is finished.
What about putting no smoking signs in the park?
Did we ask that question before? I don't know, Hugo, if you looked into that question. We given the lack of available places to smoke in the city, I think the city said something that about that outdoor space is not, and it isn't a no smoking space, and that's not city ordinance to do that. But I don't remember exactly what the outcome of that conversation was, Hugo.
Anybody else have any questions
I'm
they
not-
want
I'm
to
not
ask
sure, I don't
David?
remember.
I have a couple questions for you.
Okay.
The first one is we talked about dumpster days, and we've done a lot over in the Berryessa area. Those are usually focused on residences which have their own individual garbage collection and not on apartment complexes. We've talked about doing dumpster days across the district, but I'm asking those of you who live in these complexes where you have central dumpsters and garbage delivery, whether that kind of service would be useful to you as well.
I don't know.
I can tell you about our complex. Our complex, in about a couple days from now, they're going to have a dumpster that the complex puts out for anyone's Christmas trees. Our dumpsters get emptied, every couple of days, it seems like now, because before it wasn't that many. Now it seems like they're here every day. But I think most apartment complexes handle the dumpster issues. If someone wants to throw away a mattress or something, they call, green waste, and they put a note on it and put it by the dumpster. We don't really have that many single family homes, maybe
Right.
up near Alviso.
Certainly we do them in Alviso. We know that. We were
Yeah.
talking about. So that's always my assumption is that that would be the answer, but I didn't want to assume that you didn't want
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, no, I know
or that
it's
you didn't need
hugely
it.
popular, but
Yeah.
You
we
could,
have dumpsters.
Okay.
I just want to add something about the dumpster. So, yeah, we do get our dumpster collected, the big items every 2 or 3 days. But what we need is an electronic dumpster, because I go around the neighborhood a lot with my dogs. I see computers, lamps, a lot of furnishing, because we do have a high rental spaces here, and most of them are workers who migrate from job to job, so they just dump stuff right away. So I see a lot of laptops, TV, large
that'd be
screen
good.
monitors. So every single electronic equipment you can name, we have it here, and they just dump it in a regular trash. So what we need is probably a regular pickup of those electronic equipment, not just once a year, because nobody would want to store this. I mean, that's just the gist of it. I mean, we're here we're in Silicon Valley, and we have young people, we have young technical workers here. They just don't know where to put stuff if they want to dump something.
Okay.
Yeah, you know what, David, that's a good suggestion. Maybe try a dumpster day for electronics.
E-waste type of collections.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
Yeah, we can, those are other things that have been done before.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what's your
there
other
are
question?
places actually where you can throw away your electronic equipment, and I have that information. I can send it over to you.
Yeah.
But
The hard
yeah,
part is
maybe that's-
people want convenience. They want it in their neighborhood.
Right, yeah, that might be.
Yeah, we
And
do.
there's a group actually that we worked with before that, does that type of thing. So maybe that's something that.
I discovered that the Santa Clara County Library System takes batteries and small devices too. I was there picking up a book, and they had a bin for batteries. I was like, you take batteries? I was so excited.
And I know a church that actually collects them for, because they recycle it and they get money, so they have collection days. So
That's
maybe
good.
partnering with something like that, I'll look into that.
Hey, Ace Hardware Store will take your old fluorescent bulbs.
Oh,
That's
Oh,
good to know
awesome.
because I just drove to 2 different hardware stores this week trying to throw one away and they wouldn't take it.
Oh,
wow.
So it's good to know that Ace will do it.
yeah.
And Best
There's a
Buy
group
will
that
also
they-
take electronics as well.
There's a group that we work with. If we make arrangements with them and tell them there's enough demand, they'll set up a weekend where anybody who wants to bring electronic stuff can bring it. And there's pretty much no limit to what they'll take. We just have to let them know that there's enough demand in a certain area or neighborhood, and we can make arrangements with them to do that.
So you had another question? You had
My second question, this might be a tougher one, or maybe not. Coming to the council this spring will be an ordinance, a proposed ordinance to ban smoking in multifamily apartment complexes.
right.
And I've had this question about complexes in that area. What are the current rules? And if they aren't already smoke-free, what would be the desire of people in your community to have a ordinance like that on the books in San Jose?
Well, I thought it was like a state law that residences over a certain number, really, because I believe all the communities here don't allow smoking.
Yeah.
I think right now it's that individual property owners can make the decision themselves. So I mean,
Is that a rule where you are, Eamon? Or Paul?
Well, well, I mean, we're living in townhouses, so it doesn't really apply.
But
I know it applies at Bellagio. It does apply. They send a notice out every month, do not smoke.
We have
It's
signs everywhere. Yeah.
and that says it's against the law. And it's San Jose. It's a San Jose law that you're not supposed to smoke in the high density area.
Yeah, that's
Unfortunately, that's not true. It just says within the shared spaces, basically.
yeah,
But we do not have a law where you cannot smoke inside the building, and that's what we need, because if somebody smokes your neighbor smokes and we do share a wall, I could smell that smoke, and it's not good for people who have asthma like me.
Yeah.
right.
Yes.
Very sensitive to smoke, and people here do tend to smoke just like a couple of yards away, and they don't really care. They just dump the cigarette, so there goes your carbon footprint that you're trying to eliminate.
Yeah. Yeah. David, that's a good idea to do that for the no smoking.
Yeah, if I may, Gene, this is Dick Santos, being a retired fire captain of 33 years. And if you watch the Philadelphia fire today, where 7 kids, and I can go on and on, all perished. Anytime you have prevention, but these laws are not as good if you don't enforce them. We've got enough laws in the books to last a lifetime. But when it comes to fires, and it's what you do to your neighbors, and the innocent, they have to pay the price. So prevention is always the best. So David, whatever you can do to make it safer, I support those things.
Yeah. We do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gene, I sent several questions in, but I don't want to monopolize this or anything.
No, go ahead.
Because the time is going, but there were several questions, but it's not the question. There's too many good positive things going on. I would say, being from Alviso and being here every day, is 54 years of neglect. And I know that Stacy and David and Hugo and Lamb is all chipped in and trying to whittle things down. It can't be done overnight. So I always do this. There's a lot of stuff you can say negative or whatever they have you, but the workload they have, I totally understand it. And the challenge they have trying to catch up, because our last 8 years of representation has been pretty brutal. And we're trying to catch up and do a lot of things during this C-19 and all the other challenges. So it's not easy. So I just want to say, I appreciate the energy and so on you guys have taken to whittle the list down in Alviso. I would just say this to you, that I don't know where you got the 78,000 for a garden park, but it's never been a priority in Alviso. That thing has been abandoned. We put sandbags there. And when there was a garden, the city of San Jose, they took out the water meter that used to give free water. They took it out, and it only serves a few people. I'm not against it, but I would love to see the 78,000 go to the park. When I hear people talk about a dog park, I'm not against it. My blood curdles because I'm sitting there with 54 years and our children on having a park. So there's where the priorities are. If you could take that 78,000, include it back into the park, we're going to benefit. The garden park or the does not benefit Alviso as a whole. It's just a few people. And I'm not opposed to it, but that's a lot of money designated to a park of a garden and vegetables that ain't going to go nowhere.
Well, it's not an either or thing for me. We're working on both, and we're going to keep pushing to chip away at the master plan for the Alviso Park and work on project by project. And so we're going to figure out this year what the projects are that we can try to fund. I will also mention, Dick, I don't know if you were there when we talked about this with Alviso or not, but we finally got the bathrooms fixed at the pool.
Oh, I know you did not.
So,
and those are the many things I want to say thank you.
Yeah.
Believe me, there's more thank yous. Anyway, I don't.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah.
No, I thank you because it was a big benefit that we needed. Sure.
No, I'm not going to hang up.
But
Right,
I'd like
and-
to see the North First Street Task Force get back together with Gene Marlowe. And I used to go in all those meetings. I sat there as advisory. I really believe, I wish you will, I'll tell you why. Things have changed. We're going to have mayor elections. There's so many things going to go on. And I believe that the growth, it could be overwhelmingly. I hope we can work together and plan that with input from the community and working with your office. I really see some good things happening. Everybody wants something, but if we all monitor and work together, it can be done better. So that's just my comment.
Yeah, and we have just we're putting together the Tasman Area Transportation Committee. I think Michael from RONA is part of that, to represent your area on that. That's going to be a major growth area and funding area in the coming years as the transportation improvements around Tasman. So we're putting that together, and the North San Jose plan is coming back for a total revamp in the spring. And then at that point, we'll be able to know better what the plans are. We're hoping by that point in March or April, we will finally settle with Santa Clara so that we can begin to actually get some work done. We're excited that certain developers are already waiting for that to be done. Apple's going to build several thousand affordable housing units on their site over a component, which we're excited about. There's a Catholic Charities project over on Vista, Montana, and there's some other developments over at Bay Point. They're all waiting for that sort of trigger to get started. So that will also help fund the parks and transportation as those things get built.
Well, along with Gene Marlowe, if I could be helpful in any kind of way, please call.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to ask you, have you met with the developer over on Sealy, the Hanover Group?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll talk to you later about some of the issues that we have over there. So
yeah, I mean, the project still has a lot of hurdles to get through before it's really, at that point.
right.
The least of I would say not the least of which is what they're going to do to get traffic in and out of Montague and put a signal there whether they can or not. So we're not quite at that point where the project is a go.
Right.
We're just in the discussion phase.
Right. And also there's a concern about the mobile home park, Westwind, off of I think it's Nelson or
Yeah, on Nicholson.
Nicholson, right. So what's going on there?
Nothing's really changing there. I mean, the park is there, and we believe it's there for the long haul.
Okay.
The folks who live there are working, and I've been in some meetings with them about creating a co-op so they can hopefully someday purchase their own land and buy it from the Nicholsons and then own it themselves, which would give them more certainty and reduce their rents or eliminate their rents ultimately if they buy it. So they're trying to figure that out, whether they can get the support from their community to buy the property.
Right. One last question for me is, what are the projects coming in North San Jose as residents that we need to be aware of? Like, for instance, the Sealy site, that's really big. And you talked about the Apple and something about Bay Point? Is there
Well, there's a
any?
few spots, properties still in the Bay Point area near the Bay Point station, light rail station that are slated for development. So there's a couple of buildings that will go up, presumably more residences in that area. That's on the other side, other kind of diagonally across from the school, along Bay Point Drive. But there's a lot of potential development that would come along First Street, but that's maybe further south of Tasman, or south of, I shouldn't say Tasman, south of Montague and Trimble. And then there's also the VTA site
Right.
next to Riverview,
Yeah.
that VTA plans to convert into a mixed-use development site. I'm not sure what their timeline is, though. It's not immediate, but
Right.
it's something that'll happen. We are also working with VTA, Department of Transportation and VTA on improving the light rail corridor by improving the signals to help light rail get through, but potentially building grade separation so the trains can run faster and they don't interfere with traffic. So those are, again, in the early planning stages.
Okay, and anybody else have any last minute questions?
I got a last minute question. Sorry, it's Jocelyn again. I don't understand why North San Jose is dedicated to high density housing instead of building more single family housing, because the times are changing. People are moving out of here to get to go to the countryside to have a actual house, a bigger place to live with a backyard, so people could, work at home instead of in this little 500 square foot space. So isn't there a way to build more single family unit housing since we now have a school close by?
Well, San Jose already is about 90%, over 90% single family homes. And so there are areas of the city along transit corridors that are slated for higher density. The more people we can move in, the more people we get using light rail and get them to BART up in Milpitas and use the transportation infrastructure that's been built. So there are parts of the city that are meant for high density, and North San Jose is one of them. And actually, what our experiences have been is that as fast as we build these multifamily units, they fill up. There's almost no vacancy in any one of these new buildings. We had buildings go up by the BART station on Berryessa Road. They were all full within, months. The same thing's true of all those new complexes in North San Jose. And we believe that there's still a lot of demand for either rental or, I don't know, many of them will be condo, but some are potential ownership situations. And there's also a need for more affordable housing, and you can get a better mix of market rate and affordable housing if you do higher density. So that's the goal of the city, is to build higher density. And there are, we live in a big city now, and that's sort of the trend in big cities, is to go to higher density housing.
Well, that's sort of not true, because, with this COVID going on, a lot more people are moving out of here, and the neighborhood, there's been a big change because it's a lot quieter, and there's a lot of moving trucks going out of this town instead of coming in. And most of these people here are all practically rental in the condo because they're in search of a real house. So I think the city should really consider building another bunch of townhouses here instead of apartment buildings.
Well, there's a mix. Like we know the Sealy development will be partly townhouses and partly apartment buildings. Same thing on Bay Point. There's some of them will be townhouses and some will be apartment buildings. So there is a mix, but we get what we have is a real lack of affordable housing for the missing middle, the teachers and firefighters and people who need to stay in this area and can't move, and people we need to provide the services in our community. And so that having that middle income housing and also having lower income housing is going to be really important for us going forward. But we always are trying to find a complete mix of all housing types across the city and find the right place for each type. All right, well, thank you. I think that we've come upon the end of our time. I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you, and I hope we can do it again. And hopefully later this year, we'll be coming out the other side of this pandemic and we can be back at the conference or the second floor of the River Oaks Community Center building there and see each other in person.
Yeah, David, make a comment through Chair Gene Marlowe. I would say this, we have so many challenges and it's a tougher road as of right now for being elected and all the responsibilities. But I can say this to you and your staff, at least we have good communication. We always keep on working together. You guys answer the phone calls and concerns we all have. And so I appreciate that. Nothing's going to be perfect, but when you get the feedback and you try to solve problems together, it can be done. So again, Gene, thanks for the meeting and thank all you guys and be safe.
Thank you.
Hi, Gene, just wanted to say one thing. I'm with the Assemblymember Alex Lee's office. I think we haven't met through our office yet, but we are here to serve the resident of River Oaks area in his district. As I mentioned, if you ever need help, you contact me or Joya, who's on the call, for any services that we can provide from the state. And we work with the Councilmember Cohen and with Director Santos very closely. And if there's any issue that comes through Milpitas to San Jose, please let us know so we can contact Milpitas authorities and help you guys out.
Gene, you're muted.
Gene, you're on mute, Gene.
Press the space bar, Gene.
Need her tech support back.
Okay, I'm sorry. She is my IT. Tell me. I didn't figure out where the mute was. Anyway, thank you very much. Appreciate this. I think it was an excellent meeting and you guys be safe. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, Evan. Thank you, Gene. Thanks,
Okay.
David.
Thank you.